The Hillman Imp looked like a humble little saloon, but underneath that cheerful shape was one of Britain's strangest small car experiments. It had smart packaging, unusual engineering, and a reputation shaped by both brilliance and bad timing. Subscribe if classic cars are your thing. Today, we're revealing the secrets behind the tiny car that dared to challenge the Mini without copying it. The tiny car with a racing heart. One of the strangest secrets of the Hillman Imp was hidden behind its tiny rear bodywork. This was not just a cheap little engine built to move shoppers through town. Its lightweight aluminium 875cc unit was developed from Coventry Climax thinking, giving the Imp a sense of engineering pedigree that felt almost too exotic for a small Roots Group car. Mounted at the back, it kept the nose clean and gave the car a distinctive balance. The benefit was a lively, rev-happy character that made the Imp feel sharper than its humble size suggested. For a family car launched in 1963, this was remarkable engineering in miniature. It made the Imp feel like a small car with a secret racing pulse, the Mini rival that refused to copy the Mini. When Britain's small car battle was defined by the front-wheel drive Mini, the Hillman Imp took a completely different road. Instead of copying Alec Isigonis's famous layout, Roots placed the engine in the rear and drove the rear wheels. It was a bold choice, and it instantly gave the Imp its own personality. The layout freed up space at the front, created unusual packaging, and gave the car a light, agile feel when driven well. But it also meant Roots was fighting the Mini with a philosophy that looked almost European, closer in spirit to a Renault or Fiat than a conventional British saloon. That difference became both its charm and its curse. The Imp was never just a Mini alternative. It was Britain's small car rebel. The gearbox the Mini should have feared. A hidden advantage of the Hillman Imp was not in its shape, but in the way it changed gear. Its 4-speed transaxle was unusually sophisticated for a small British car of the early 1960s, with synchro mesh on all forward gears. That meant smoother shifts, less grinding, and a more grown-up driving experience than many economy cars could offer. In simple terms, the Imp felt less like a bargain basement runabout and more like something carefully engineered for people who enjoyed driving. This detail mattered because small cars were often expected to be basic, noisy, and mechanically crude. The Imp quietly pushed back against that idea. It gave ordinary drivers a little taste of refinement usually found further up the market. The rear window trick. Before hatchbacks were normal, from the outside, the Hillman Imp looked like a neat little saloon, but one of its cleverest tricks was at the back. The rear window could open upwards, giving access to luggage space behind the rear seats. This was long before the hatchback became the default shape for practical small cars. It was a surprisingly practical solution, especially in a compact car where every inch mattered. Fold the rear seat, and the Imp became far more useful than its tidy silhouette suggested. The design gave families, students, and young drivers a small car that could handle more than the weekly shop. It was one of those quiet ideas that made the Imp feel ahead of its time. The car looked conventional, but its practicality was anything but ordinary. The dashboard, that got worse, in the name of progress. Inside the Hillman Imp, the early cars had a charm that felt simple, honest, and surprisingly thoughtful. The driving position, controls, and dashboard layout gave the car a sense of small car intelligence rather than cheapness. But as the model evolved later, interior changes did not always improve the experience. The redesigned dashboard of the late 1960s brought a more conventional look. Yet some enthusiasts felt it lost part of the original car's clean, distinctive character. It was progress on paper, but not necessarily in emotion. This unusual detail matters because interiors are where drivers form a bond with a car. The Imp's cabin tells a familiar story. When manufacturers chase modernization, they sometimes erase the very quirks that made a car memorable. The 600-mile factory problem. One of the most dramatic parts of the Hillman Imp story was not under the bonnet, but in the factory system behind it. The car was built at Linwood in Scotland, a new plant created with strong political and industrial ambitions. But Roots still had major operations far away in England, including Ryton, and the logistics became painfully complicated. Components and engines had to move across long distances, turning a small economy car into a surprisingly complex production operation. In simple terms, the Imp was expected to be cheap, but its manufacturing world was anything but simple. The benefit was jobs and industrial growth in Scotland, but the cost was pressure, delay, and inconsistency. Behind the cheerful little car was a huge national experiment on wheels. The car rushed before it was ready. The Hillman Imp had brilliant ideas, but its early reputation suffered because some of those ideas reached customers before they were fully matured. Cooling issues, awkward controls, and reliability complaints gave the car a difficult start in the mid-1960s. For buyers, that mattered more than clever engineering. A family did not care how advanced the aluminium engine was if the car caused trouble on the way to work. Roots did improve the Imp over time, especially as later versions became more sorted, but first impressions are brutal in the car world. Once a model earns a reputation, it can be almost impossible to escape. This is the tragedy of the Imp. The concept was brave, but the launch needed more time. Its greatest enemy was not the Mini, it was timing. The coupe that looked faster but wasn't. Few Imp variants looked as tempting as the sleek coupe-bodied versions, including the Hillman Imp Californian and the Sunbeam Stiletto. With a lower, sportier roofline and a more dramatic profile, they seemed ready to turn the small Imp into a miniature Grand Tourer. But appearance did not tell the whole story. The coupe shape looked faster, yet it did not transform the car into a serious performance machine. Its appeal was more about image, style, and showroom sparkle than raw speed. That made it a fascinating marketing move. Roots understood that buyers wanted emotion as much as engineering. These cars gave the Imp family glamour, even if the basic mechanical recipe remained familiar. They proved that, sometimes, a small car only needs a sharper suit to feel special. The underdog that beat bigger names on track and rally stages. The most satisfying twist in the Hillman Imp story is that the little car found glory where many people least expected it. Motorsport, its lightweight, rev-happy engine, and agile handling made it a genuine weapon in the right hands. Rosemary Smith famously helped give the Imp Rally credibility in the 1960s, while Bill McGovern turned it into a giant killer in British saloon car racing during the early 1970s. This was not just a cute economy car playing dress-up. On tight stages and circuits, the Imp could embarrass bigger, more obvious machines. That racing success gave the car a redemption arc beyond its showroom struggles. It showed that the engineering ideas were real. The Imp may have lost the sales war, but it earned a legacy in competition. The Hillman Imp was a car of brilliant ideas, painful compromises, and unexpected victories. It challenged the Mini in its own strange way, stumbled under the weight of ambition, yet still left behind a legacy of clever engineering and motorsport pride. Click to watch more stories about Britain's forgotten classic cars. Like, subscribe, and tell us what you think of the Imp in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.